Okay, guys, buckle up, because today we're talking about protesting. We are talking about how to resist, and I'm fired up. It's going to be a good one. Don't worry. I know there's so much anger and passion going around. That's okay, but if you don't have the energy for it, that's also okay. You can find grace here and just, listen. And if you can't or aren't ready to do any of this or think about any of this, wait until the day when you wake up fighting mad about sexism and then listen to this one, because it'll give you a direction. So this is my second take. My first take was just me pacing around the house, kind of yelling things in a disorganized manner for 38 minutes. And so I've kind of organized it more in a flow of what I hope to accomplish here. But there's so many movements going on right now. Ever since it was announced that Trump has won the presidency, women have been plotting and scheming. They are seething mad. And I get it, we finally have a presidential candidate who is qualified, and she doesn't have a penis. And because of that, and because of some other factors, we now have Trump again, who's just like this unqualified reality TV character on the world stage, pretty much thinking to himself, how much can I get away with? And it's so funny to see him being prayed over by pastors and by people. And it's so funny as well for me to see these memes going around Facebook saying, God bless America, because this dude is not Christian, I am telling you. And it's so funny to watch his face as he's getting prayed over, because he's just like got that weird grin where he's just like, yes. And he's just like, yes, thank you. This dude is willing to embarrass himself to no end just in order to see how much it's possible to get away with. He's just a character. He wears whatever clothes people give him if he thinks it's gonna mean becoming president, because he loves to get up there on stage and be like, I'm the best, I'm the most important. He loves being important. But he's not a Christian, guys. Come on. People have been cooking up plans, and it is great to see, but, there's a lot of people disheartened, and that is less great to see. And I see a lot of posts saying, we've been fighting for this since the 70s. How come we're still fighting for it? I am in fear of our future as a country, and I am so saddened and disappointed for the next generation. And I get it, but yeah, we do have to keep fighting. We have to keep fighting for the people of the next generation. We have to keep fighting for our generation. And look, personally, I'm not sad. I guess I'm disappointed, but to me, it's something that I always knew was a possibility of happening, and it doesn't change my values. It doesn't change the fact that I'm going to continue to stand up for what's right. That's that. I don't know the president. I don't know the governors. I'm just one person voting in the United States, and I have zero control over the elections. The only thing I can do is my small part. And so I don't allow myself to get too pissed about, too emotionally riled up. Of course, I'm pissed and I think he's an absolute buffoon, and he is. But if you don't have that opinion, then whatever. But what I'm saying is, I don't allow myself to get defeated because there's somebody in the presidency, because I don't have control over that. You don't have control over what Trump does. You don't ever have control over the fact that he's in office. You don't have control over what the senators do. The only thing you do have control over is what you do. And it seems very small. What you do seems like it's not going to have an impact. But there's this little book called Small Acts of Resistance, and it will change your mind on the matter. It really will, and I recommend that you get it. I will leave a screenshot of the cover of it, if I can, in the show notes. I don't want to put a link to Amazon because I don't personally support Amazon. I usually reach out to secondhand bookstores. There's one called Thrift Books. There's another called, hold on, I'll pull it up, abebook.com, like ABE, Abe Lincoln. So that's the second one I would recommend. And then there's secondsale.com. These places get books from thrift stores and other places, and they are secondhand, but that's fine. Or you can buy it new off Amazon. It's called Small Acts of Resistance. It's by Steve Crawshaw and John Jackson. And Steve Crawshaw has another book called Street Spirit, The Power of Protest and Mischief. And the tagline to the other book that I first mentioned is Small Acts of Resistance. The tagline is How Courage, Tenacity, and Ingenuity Can Change the World. And it's so cute. There's this little old lady on the front of it, and she's holding up a finger, not the middle finger, but she's holding up a pointy finger, seemingly saying to the cop in front of her, the military guy in camo, like, not today, son. And it helps you understand that there are different ways of protesting, different ways of resisting. And it tells stories of places in the world where a small act of resistance made a big impact and grew into a movement. And I think we all want a movement. We all want to join a movement. Less of us want to start a movement. Most of us don't want to start a movement. We just want to join a movement, and we want it to have impact. But I guess the creative stage in between starting a movement is missing, and most people don't want to start a movement because they don't know how to be in charge of a movement and be the spokesperson for a movement, and they don't think that amount of power should be on them necessarily, but they want someone to have that and to start that, and then they want to join in. But that's not really how movements work. I've come to understand, or I've come to think, and this book I've been reading it, and it's just a collection of multiple different stories, and they're grouped into different sections. You've got Mischief, you've got The Power of Many, you've got the sex protest, you've got even a sports section where people used sports to send a message, where sports is normally not a political act. But, for example, a tournament where let's say that there was a sports tournament now between Israelis and Palestinians. For, let's say, the organizer of that event, let's say it was planned before the war, or it's a worldwide Olympic event or something like that. There are opportunities in places where you normally don't think are political places. An opportunity could arise in those industries, in those sectors. And if a person finds themselves involved in the organization of that event, they're given sort of power and influence in that moment to make a difference. And so I guess the first question I wanted to ask is, as a listener, when you think of protest, like I'm gonna protest Donald Trump's presidency, what do you think of? It pretty much gives the idea of going to City Hall or going somewhere public with a sign and standing on the street and chanting. But that's not the only way to protest. That's not the only way to resist. I think that's what our society has, I guess, forgotten in this day and age, because I think ever since the Black Lives Matter movement, it's been pretty much protesting and rioting. That seems like our only forms of action. But if you think back to civil rights eras, and if you read this book, you'll get other stories, not just from the States, because, if we take stories only from the history of the U.S., we have a much smaller pool of ideas to look at. But this book pulls from all different countries, Poland and North and South Korea and China, and I think it also is going to talk about the Berlin Wall, so Germany as well. I haven't finished it, but it's just all these little stories from everywhere, all these different places, Serbia, just different places who've had rulers who wanted to control like a dictator, and who've had wars break out that they didn't agree with, and a really cool story about how people put their TVs in a stroller and would walk around the block because at 7 p.m. every night it was mandatory. The government made it mandatory that you had to sit in your house and watch the TV, watch the news, so that they could control what everybody knew about the government and what everybody knew about what was going on and how they viewed it. It was mandatory to watch the news every day at 7. And these people, they began the movement by, I guess one person had the idea that I'm not doing that. And I want other people to know that I'm not doing that. I'm against that. And so they put their TV in the front window facing outward and shut off so that all their neighbors, anybody could see that they were against that. And so it grew to the whole block, and the idea grew even more, and people also started just going for a walk at 7 o'clock so that, I guess if any police or government people happen to be going through, they would know that, these people are resisting. And I think some people got arrested, but it didn't stop. It showed their neighbors. What it was is it showed their neighbors that they also, that they're not doing that. And so I guess the neighbors were like glad that somebody else felt the same way, and they felt inspired to do similar things. And so they started resisting as well, and they started putting their TVs in the front windows and started going for walks at 7 p.m. every day. And then what people started doing, which is so fucking epic and hilarious. I mean, the resistance can be funny too, and I'll explain why. They would put their TV sets in a stroller, and they would take their TVs for a walk at 7 p.m. to make the point even more clear that they are not going to be oppressed and controlled. And that's so fucking epic. There are so many ways that we could make fun of Trump's ideology in a comical way, but in a very clear showing of, yeah, I'm not doing that. Yeah, I don't believe in that. Yeah, that's not right. At least on my side, I disagree. I'm not doing that. I'm standing up against that. It's not just making a sign and going to a protest. That's only one of the ways. And I wanted to point this out. There are, in my view, two things that a public protest with signs in front of City Hall does. The one thing it does is tell the government, this many people are against the policy that you're trying to enact, and this many people are going to sabotage at every turn anything that you try to put into legislation. So think about all the work that you're doing in order to legislate the this and the that, and if you actually manage to do it, it's just not really going to work the way you want, because there's this many people who are not going to do it, or who are going to sabotage it, or are going to try and find a loophole and go around it. Because there's always a loophole. There's always a loophole. And so that's one thing that a protest does, is it shows the people in power how many out there are going to sabotage their plan as soon as it comes into legislation. And then the second thing it does is tell everybody at home who is being oppressed, who is the victim of this legislation, these many people are behind you. These many people will stand up for you. These many people, even if it's the law that they have to oppress you, will do everything they can not to. They will resist. They will abstain. They won't take part. These people are going to stand up for you. They're going to hide your data so it can't be seen what you're doing. They're going to let you stay in their basement. They're going to drive you to an illegal clinic where you can get the help you actually need. They're going to forge their name instead of yours so that you're protected. They're going to resist. All of these people that you see on the TV are behind you. But that protest is only the beginning. It's only one part of it. So all that's saying is everyone here is going to resist, and then begins the resistance. And then begins the sabotage, and then begins the actual work of standing up against something that is wrong, standing up against controlling people, taking away their freedoms, forcing them to do what you think is morally right. Then begins the resistance. The protest is just a way to say, look how many people strong we are, and the rest happens underground. The rest happens in text messages and in private conversations and in sly ways of outwardly declaring that you are against this. Whether you put your TV in a stroller or whether you all wear a dress to work if you're a group of men. Or what I'm planning on doing on January 20th, the day that Trump's inaugurated, wearing a suit with a red tie and a little flag lapel pin so that I look like the president, to make a statement that sexism in America has prevented us from having a woman president, not because we haven't had qualified candidates, but because people believe that women cannot be in leadership. I'm gonna wear a fucking suit with a red tie and an American lapel pin to show the statement that we have never seen a woman in the presidency, because sexism believes that if you have a dick hanging between your legs, you're automatically more suited for leadership. You're automatically smarter and better and stronger than any woman who's also qualified. You're automatically better than all women because you have a penis flapping around between your legs. So many people in the United States legitimately believe in this hierarchy. This is something I learned is at the basis of all oppression and at the basis of all racism, sexism, and all the ways that we treat people inhumanely is a hierarchy. So Christians believe that God is at the top, man is just underneath, and then woman is underneath them. So they truly believe that men were ordained by God to be better leaders, and it all started with they're the man of the house, they're the leader of the family, and somehow that also translates into the workplace. And this is a hierarchy. So this essentially rates certain humans above others. And when the women's movement first came about and women wanted to vote, they were pissed because I think there's a history of racism in the women's movement because they got pissed that Black men had more power than white women. So I think when slavery was abolished, women couldn't vote, right? And then when slaves became American citizens and started getting their rights, women still weren't allowed to vote. And white women finally realized that as far as the hierarchy goes, somehow Black men are above them, even though at that time the hierarchy was God, underneath white man, underneath white woman, and then underneath Black man, and then underneath Black woman. Now, when Black men and women were put together with white men and women, it became noticeable to white women that Black men were above them because men in the hierarchy are above women. And they got so angry about the fact that who could dare for a Black man to have more power than me? They can vote and I can't. So that's why women won the vote. It wasn't because they wanted to show their opinions. It's because they were mad that Black men had more power than they did, and they didn't see that as right because they thought they were hierarchically better than them. So this hierarchy in how we see other humans is the problem behind a lot of oppression. And that's why I hesitate to classify myself as a Christian nowadays, because even though I believe in everything Jesus preached and everything he did and everything he was about, I don't believe that it goes God, man, woman. I don't believe in any hierarchy within the human race. That's just doesn't make any sense to me, and it just seems wrong to me. And honestly, biblically, we were all created in God's image. So that right there tells you and me that we're on the same playing field. God created us both. Just because you have a penis doesn't mean you're smarter than me. Like, that doesn't even make any fucking sense. I digress. That's hierarchy. So let's go back to talking about protest and resistance. What I wanted to just point out is that a public protest in City Hall is not the only way to protest it's definitely not the only way to resist. It's only the beginning. It's just a way to show support. And so there are so many different ways to resist, so many different ways, using your job, using your place in the community, using your place in your family. There are a multitude, like thousands upon thousands of different ways to do it, and you have to figure out what is going to work best, what is going to have impact, what is something that feels like you have to find your own way to stand up for what's right. You have to find your own way to resist for the movement to work. And if it carries on, if it inspires somebody else, if it catches on and becomes a movement, then that's what happens. But that's shouldn't be on your mind when you do it. A small act that gets the point across, that feels like you, that is a small way to resist the oppression and the ideology that you're against. That's all you need. And that's what this book really helped me to realize. I really recommend that you buy it and that you start brainstorming. And now I'm going to transition for the last bit of this episode into what is currently being talked about for different movements. And I guess let's start with the sex protest, the sex abstinence movement, and then go on to what I am planning on doing as my form of protest. We're also going to talk about a scheduled women's march on DC and scheduled women's marches all over the country. So let's get into this. The sex abstinence movement is called the 4B movement. It came from, I think, Korea or China or both. I think it started in China, it gained traction in Korea, and now it's been Googled like an astronomical amount of times since Trump was announced as the next president, and it's gaining a lot of movement in women's rights groups and just women in general in the States that want to do something. And basically, it's called the 4B movement. That's because in its original language, that translates to the 4-No movement. It's saying no to 4 different things. It's saying no to dating men. It's saying no to having sex with men. It's saying no to marrying men. And it's saying no to raising children. And these are the things that men think that women are born and made to do. It's the things that men in these circles believe that women are supposed to do, expected to do. And so this movement is a way to counteract that and say, no, we don't have to fucking do that. But it is extreme. It's not for everybody. It's no dating men, no having sex with men, no raising children with men, and no getting married. You know, if you already are dating a man, okay, well, I guess you can just abstain from having sex. But that's not healthy for your relationship. So I guess, you can say, well, we're not going to get married. And that is fine. If your partner's all right with it and you guys just stay dating forever, that is one way to do it as well. It's not accessible for everybody to do this forever. It's something that you can do for, let's say, a month or 3 months or 6 months. You can do the 4-No movement or the 4B movement. So let's say from the time that Trump gets inaugurated, you decide that for 6 months you're not going to date, you're not going to have sex, you're not with men. I mean, you can still have sex with women. You can still do all this stuff with women. You can raise children with women. You can marry a woman. But it's no doing these things for men, because it's these men who believe that women are created for this purpose, for them, to be sex objects for them, to be mothers to them, to wash their dishes, to have kids with them, and to raise the kids single-handedly. It's those type of men who put Donald Trump in office. It's those type of men who work for Donald Trump who are going to be making legislation. And so this movement, honestly, if you are the wife of a politician or anyone in government, this can be a really strong way to help the movement, because you can say to your husband, I'm not having sex with you until women are respected as equal in this country, or until women have full access to birth control in this country, and force him to, I guess not force him, but inspire him through the withholding of sex to be more active in his work. Even if your husband is a supporter of the women's movement, it just encourages him to be a more urgent supporter. What I'm going to do the week that Trump is inaugurated is to refuse to do housework. I have told my partner I won't be doing any chores. I won't be doing any housework. I won't be making any meals. I won't be going to the grocery store for 1 week. I won't be doing any of that. So if you support women, I hope that you can show your solidarity by helping to carry the weight that women around the world often carry alone, and show solidarity that for that week you take on the tasks that most American women have to take on in the home. Taking care of everybody in the home, that they're fed, that their clothes are washed. Cleaning the home, doing errands, taking the kids to the doctor. We don't have kids, but if we did, I would not be doing any child raising or parenting for that week, just to take the role of a man just for a week. And this is something that I'm planning on doing to protest. You can do this 4No movement, this 4B movement as protest for a limited amount of time. That also has an impact. I would recommend that you do it the same week that Donald Trump is getting inaugurated, because it's going to take a big toll on the economy. Because, for example, you'll see a lot of people ordering out that week. If women across the nation protest to all type of housework, there will be statistical proof of the labor that women go through, meaning that since men are often incapable or not willing to cook because they're tired, women, we know that when you're tired, many of us still cook even when we're tired, but you'll see that men are ordering pizzas, or they're ordering groceries delivered instead of going themselves. And so if multiple of us protest for the entire week against all housework, against all parenting, there will be a statistical impact felt across the country that economists can actually identify, that government officials can actually become aware of. It's going to be clear to see. And so that's what I've decided to do the entire week of the inauguration. January 18th, 2 days before he gets inaugurated, there is a scheduled women's march on Washington, D.C. Hundreds of thousands of women expect to be there protesting, and I'm hoping and expecting across the country in different capital cities and in other metropolitan areas that on January 18th there will also be protests scheduled. I'm hoping that one gets organized in Amsterdam so that, Americans abroad and women abroad can show solidarity on the 18th and do a protest then as well. But remember, that is only the beginning. I'm also planning on wearing a suit. So it's just to make a stand that, does it seem unnatural to you to see a woman president? That's exactly the point. I'm also going to ask some of my male friends and different men that I know in my life to wear a pink tie on the day of the inauguration. Kind of that same thing. Even if they decide, to go one step further and wear a blouse with a tie, or just kind of to feminize their work attire in a way that's not disruptive to work, to make a small statement about the fact that women are not in power. And I guess it's a statement that, it doesn't matter if I'm wearing flowers, I'm still able to conduct a meeting, to run numbers, to do my job, to lead people, to do my job. So I guess it's just a small statement of the only difference, I guess, between men and women in the workplace is what they wear. It's not their capabilities. It might be that they have a different perspective, But that doesn't mean that they're less capable as managers or less capable of programming a computer, or, it doesn't mean that they have less skills if they have a different perspective. And so I am going to ask different people on the January 20th to wear something feminine, either a pink tie, because I'll be wearing a red tie, dressing up as the president. So, I thought, okay, a pink tie would be, if everybody, like in a company, if you saw 10 people in one day wearing a pink tie, it'd make you think, if across the country we saw pictures of lawyers or pictures of, accountants, or if we saw on the same day a bunch of different people wearing a pink tie, that one symbol, it's a small thing to do, but when you see 10 people in a room doing it, you're like, okay, what, did you guys plan this? It makes you think, like, what is going on? So it's a way to make a statement. So that's another thing I'm thinking about doing and asking. I'm going to try and wrap this episode up now, but what I wanted to say is that every person will have their own movement, their own ways of resisting, because there's so many different ways that it manifests, these laws that they put into effect. And so there's so many different ways to resist. And we're all each such different people with different professions and different ideas. And so there are millions of ways to resist. Your job is to find your way to resist. And then your job after that is to simply talk about it with others. And if they're inspired and they want to take part, if you want to invite them to take part, then the movement can grow. And that's how you protest. That's how you resist. And we can do this. I don't want you to feel disappointed that women did this in the 70s and we still have to do it. I mean, that's besides the point. We don't choose that other people decided to do what's wrong, to do what's evil, to do what excludes other people. That was never our choice. We have no control over it. The only thing you need to do is what's right, to stand up for what's right. That's all you can do, and that's what we're going to continue to do. So the resistance marches on. We are in this together, and I cannot wait to see what you guys come up with and to share your stories and to be empowered to do the right thing. I'll leave you with that. Catch you on the next one. Bye.